Well, hello there. Welcome to my blog and newsletter. I'm Dr. Atkin, and in a minute here, I'm going to share with you my story. Why I do what I do. I grew up in the beautiful Rocky Mountains of Colorado on a small farm with a large family, and we were an active bunch. Well, when I was 10, my older sister Crystal was 12, and I had signed her up for a track race. So we were off at some regional track race. I don't know exactly when it happened, but all of a sudden across the field, a big group of people started gathering around somebody. Somebody must have fallen and injured themselves. So I go running over there just like everybody else. And as I poke my head through that circle, I see my sister Crystal on the ground having a seizure. Now, obviously we were all freaked out, right? We call an ambulance, the ambulance comes, sirens wailing and lights ablazing, and they pick her up and they haul her off. And I remember that was a pretty helpless feeling, watching my sister go off in an ambulance, because at age 10, what do ambulances mean? Either somebody's dead or somebody's dying, right? Well, we followed over to the hospital, and a half hour later, Crystal came out of it, and she actually seemed completely normal. Doctors couldn't figure out what had happened, and so we thought, well, that was kind of weird, and life moved on. Well, a couple of weeks later, she fainted again, and then she fainted again and again and again, and before long, Crystal was having a seizure almost every single day. We went to all kinds of doctors who came up with all kinds of theories, ran all kinds of tests, but they couldn't figure anything out. All they could determine was that if they broke an ammonia capsule underneath her nose, the vapors would go up into her head, they'd wake her up, she'd move on, and actually would seem completely normal after doing that. So this happens day after day, week after week, month after month, and after 2 years of this, the unthinkable happens. Crystal has a seizure, she doesn't come out of it, and she becomes fully paralyzed from the neck down as a result of that. I can only imagine what my dad was going through. As a father now, it must have been helpless trying to figure out what you could do for your little girl. Well, he threw us all in the Suburban. We loaded up. We drove the 3 or 4 hours to the nearest major regional hospital where all the specialists of the specialists were. He put his foot down and said, listen, I'm not going anywhere until you figure out what's going on with my girl. So once again, all kinds of doctors run all kinds of tests, come up with all kinds of theories as to what's happening. And once again, none of them pan out. I remember sitting through those specialists explaining what they thought was happening. I probably learned more about how the human body worked during that time than almost any other time. But every time they tried a new therapy or a new drug, nothing seemed to really make a difference until they gave us her very last diagnosis. And I don't know what the official name of it was, but what it boiled down to is that they decided that it was all in her head. That a 14-year-old at that point was looking to get attention, and so she was fainting herself into paralysis, and that there was nothing that they could do about it. Needless to say, we didn't exactly buy into that one. We knew that Crystal wasn't faking it, but there was nothing else that we could do, and so we went home, and she was in a wheelchair, and that was that. Fortunately, I don't know how, maybe a couple months later, somebody says, well, listen, you need to go see my chiropractor. And I'm sure, I don't know what was going through my dad's mind at the time. I'm sure he probably questioned them and said, hey, you see she's paralyzed here. I mean, I don't know what a chiropractor has to do with that. But, we tried everything else, so we thought, what the heck, right? So we drive the hour and a half to see their chiropractor, and chiropractor does a head-to-toe examination and does x-rays and everything else, and finds that there's a loss of curve in her neck. He says that there's a problem with her neck and that he wants to adjust her. And so we thought, okay, well, go for it. And so he gives her first adjustment. And I don't know what we expected from that first adjustment. But she's laying there on the table, and there's silence. We're kind of like, I don't know, move or something, right? And so right after that adjustment, for the first time, Crystal had movement in her fingers and in her toes. Now, I know that might not sound like a lot to you, but tell that to a paralyzed person, right? We were so excited. In fact, The chiropractor told her he was going to have to come back pretty regularly over, the next couple of weeks and months as her body went through the healing process. But as I was reading through my mom's journals while I went through chiropractic school, it was within 3 weeks that Crystal was walking again. And months later, she was running around doing all the things that a teenager should be doing. Now, she fainted a handful more times over the coming months and years, but she came out of it quickly every time. You fast forward 20 years, and Crystal's now a happy mother, raising a happy family, living the life that she always dreamed of. As a 10 to 12-year-old at that point, I thought, you know what? That's what I'd like to be able to do for people. And that was a dream. Of course, at that age, you kind of laugh at little kids, right? Kids don't know what they want to do. Well, that was a dream and a vision that really never left me. And it grew and it grew. And, I became a chiropractor. And quite frankly, I'm living my dream, loving everything that I do, seeing stories and experiencing things just like my sister was able to. And it's a huge passion of mine.